Suppose a wedding night could feel more like a ritual of violence than a union of love. In ancient Rome, many brides stepped into their husband's house not as partners, but as captives. Some ceremonies ended not with celebration, but with forced entry and coerced compliance. What the Romans called marriage sometimes resembled something far darker. Stay with me, because what you think you know about Rome may only scratch the surface. The root of many of Rome's earliest wedding customs lies in myth, specifically the legendary rape of the Sabine women. According to Roman tradition, the founding generation kidnapped women from neighboring Sabine communities to populate Rome. That act of force was later ritualized in wedding ceremonies. The bride, supposedly chaste and willing, would follow a procession to her husband's home, accompanied by a mock abduction or symbolic leading. The groom would wrest the bride from her father's house and carry her over the threshold, a ceremonial echo of violence conceived as consent. In effect, the wedding night ritual institutionalized that mythic violence, transforming abduction into custom, consent into duty. Roman writers outside legal or celebratory contexts sometimes hint at the darker side of nuptials. One long-standing criticism holds that the wedding night was effectively a legal rape. According to the historian of Roman social life, some grooms deferred vaginal intercourse, deflowering, allegedly out of concern for the bride's discomfort, but replaced it with anal intercourse or coercive sexual access. Legal and social structures added pressure. Many brides were very young, early teens, and the legal minimum age was low. The wedding had deep political and economic significance, involving family honor, dowries, lineage, and legitimacy. Sex and consummation weren't romantic milestones. Instead, they were obligations. Within that system, a bride's timidity or resistance was often overridden by social expectation. For many, the first night was not a union of equals, but an act of submission. As Rome shifted toward Christianity and new moral frameworks, many of these old customs became shameful, even unmentionable. The graphic accounts of forced intercourse or marital coercion grew too scandalous for public record. Over time, official histories sanitized the act. The consummation of marriage became privatized, veiled in silence, and stripped of its ritual violence. What remains are scattered references, mythological origin stories, vague mentions of ritual duty, obscure legal texts. Evidence that Rome worked hard to transform a legacy of force into a tradition of marriage. So, understanding these rituals is not about dredging up old scandals. It's about seeing how law, religion, myth, and social structure all intersected to formalize control over women's bodies. In that world, marriage was not love, but property transfer, not union, but conquest. That legacy, honestly, still echoes through centuries ideas about virginity, consent, marital duty, and gender hierarchy. For serious historians, gender scholars, or social analysts, dissecting this past really helps us trace how coercion was normalized and institutionalized. It exposes how ancient systems justified violence under the guise of sacred tradition. And, well, it shows that so-called civilized societies have often built their institutions on brutality disguised as ritual. There are, no surviving fountains of testimony from brides. Few written records, actually reveal personal trauma. Instead, we have scattered moralizing texts, a handful of legal references, and, well, mythic accounts. The silence itself is really telling. It suggests that even in Rome, these rituals were shameful, especially for women. And as Christianity and changing norms emerged, the narrative shifted. Weddings became sacraments, private, dignified. The raw truth was, sort of, buried under layers of moral reform and cultural amnesia. What remains is a cautionary tale. Societies may erase the brutality of their past, but the effects, on gender, power, and memory, they definitely endure. When we study ancient Rome's wedding rituals, we're not just studying antiquity. We're tracing the roots of systems that still persist today, coercion framed as tradition, gender inequality justified by culture, silence enforced as respectability. These are patterns that, echo across centuries. Recognizing them helps us challenge our assumptions about consent, marriage, and power right now. For scholars, educators, and really anyone who cares about human dignity, acknowledging these hidden histories is essential, because only by uncovering them can we fully understand how old structures continue shaping modern attitudes. The wedding night ritual. Rome tried to erase from history was not, honestly, a loving union. It was often an act of coercion, justified by myth and ritual. That violence was written out of polite history, but its legacy still survives. By re-examining these acts honestly, with critical eyes and empathy, we reclaim the stories of people silenced for centuries. If this dive into Rome's shadowy rituals resonated with you, if you want more of these unflinching looks at history's darker corners, hit like, subscribe, and watch my next video. We'll explore the brutal marriage laws of the Roman Republic and how they shaped family, power, and law for centuries.